Welcome to this deep dive. We're going to be looking at Psalms 6 through 10. And, some people might think Psalms are a little ancient, but
hmm
I think if we dig into them, we can see that they're anything but outdated.
Oh, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
These songs written thousands of years ago really offer this incredible window into the human experience of faith.
Right.
And I think that's why they resonate just as powerfully today as they did back then.
Yeah. They really do explore the full spectrum of emotion. I mean, we're talking doubt, despair, awe, anger,
Yeah.
and then ultimately trust.
Absolutely. It's this beautiful tapestry of human emotion woven into these prayers and songs. And it's that rawness, that authenticity that makes them so relatable even through all these centuries.
It's like a roadmap for navigating the ups and downs of life.
I love that analogy, a roadmap.
Oh, yeah.
Because it really is, isn't it? It guides us through those inevitable twists and turns, those valleys and peaks that we all encounter in our journey of faith.
Right. And what strikes me is that these aren't just some generic prayers. I mean, we're talking about a king pouring out his heart to God.
Exactly. It's King David, this powerful figure, laying bare his soul before the divine. And that vulnerability, that's key.
Yeah.
It breaks down the walls we often put up between ourselves and God. It reminds us that it's okay to come to him with all of our messy, complicated emotions.
It's true. And it makes me think about Psalm 6. David doesn't hold back. Like he's really grappling with the weight of his sins, maybe even facing some kind of illness.
And he doesn't sugarcoat it. He cries out, "Have mercy on me, Lord, for I am faint. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are in agony." There's just this raw desperation in his voice.
Right. And it's almost shocking. You wouldn't expect a king to be so open about his struggles.
That's precisely what makes these psalms so powerful. They shatter the illusion that those in positions of power or authority have it all figured out. David's honesty reminds us that even kings are human. They face pain, they wrestle with doubt, and they need God just as much as anyone else.
One line that always gets to me in Psalm 6 is, "I am worn out from my groaning. All night long I flood my bed with weeping and drench my couch with tears." I mean, everyone's been there.
Absolutely. We've all had those nights where the weight of the world feels too heavy, where the tears just won't stop. And that's the genius of the Psalms. They capture these universal experiences in such vivid, relatable language.
It's true. And there's this boldness, too. He's not afraid to question God. He's saying, "Turn, Lord, and deliver me. Save me because of your unfailing love." Like he's demanding an answer.
You're right. He's not just passively accepting his fate. He's engaging in a real dialogue with God. And that's an important point. The Psalms don't present this sanitized, passive view of faith. They invite us into an active, dynamic relationship with God, where we can bring our doubts, our anger, even our frustrations.
So it's not about pretending everything's okay.
Not at all. It's about being real, being authentic with God, wrestling with those tough questions.
So we've got this raw, honest vulnerability in Psalm 6. But then in Psalm 7, it feels like there's a shift.
You're right. There's definitely a shift in tone. There's this newfound confidence.
It's like he's moved from despair to almost like a fierce trust.
Yeah. Psalm 7 is like a declaration of trust in God's justice. David feels wrongly accused, attacked, but instead of collapsing back into despair, he calls on God to be his defender, his judge.
He's like, "I'm innocent. You see the truth, so let justice be done." It's powerful.
And it raises a question. How do we reconcile the despair of Psalm 6 with this confidence we see in Psalm 7?
I don't know. It's interesting, right?
I think it speaks to the cyclical nature of faith. We all go through these periods of doubt and fear, even anger towards God, followed by moments of clarity, trust, and renewed belief. The Psalms mirror that ebb and flow.
Okay, so from despair to a declaration of trust. But the roller coaster keeps going
Oh, yeah, it does.
because Psalm 8 takes us in a completely different direction.
A cosmic one.
It's like David takes a step back, looks up at the sky, and is just filled with awe and wonder.
It's incredible, isn't it?
That opening line, "Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory in the heavens." I get chills every time.
It's breathtaking. The language is just majestic. It captures the sheer vastness of creation, and it really puts our human struggles into a much larger perspective.
It reminds me of that Carl Sagan quote, "We are a way for the cosmos to know itself." It's humbling
It is humbling.
to realize how small we are in this grand scheme of things.
And yet, as David points out, what is mankind? That you are mindful of them, human beings, that you care for them. It's such a beautiful paradox. We're tiny specks in this vast universe.
Right.
And yet God, the creator of it all, is mindful of us, cares for us individually.
It's like you're standing on a mountaintop, looking out at the endless horizon. You feel so insignificant, yet at the same time so connected to something much bigger than yourself.
Exactly. That's the essence of Psalm 8. It's a call to step back from our daily anxieties, to marvel at the wonders of creation, and to recognize that we're part of this much grander design.
So we've gone from the depths of personal despair to this cosmic perspective of awe and wonder. That's quite a journey in just 3 songs.
It is, and the journey continues. Psalm 9 takes us on a whole different kind of emotional ride.
This one's a celebration, right?
It is. It's a song of thanksgiving for God's faithfulness and justice.
He recounts all God's victories, praising him for protecting the oppressed and bringing down the wicked. It's this triumphant feeling, like a recognition that even with all the chaos and injustice, God is ultimately in control.
Exactly. It's a powerful message of hope, reminding us that even when things seem dark and chaotic, there is a higher power at work, a force for good that will ultimately prevail.
It's a good reminder, especially in a world where it's so easy to get bogged down in the negativity.
It's a call to shift our focus, to look beyond the immediate circumstances and find reasons for gratitude, even amidst challenges.
It's like choosing to see the good, even when you feel surrounded by darkness.
Exactly. And that choice, that active decision to seek out the good, can be incredibly empowering.
So we've got this almost defiant joy in Psalm 9, but then Psalm 10, the tone shifts again.
It does. We return to a sense of questioning, even lament. David wrestles with this age-old problem of evil.
He's like, why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble?
He's back in that place of doubt, grappling with the seeming contradiction of a loving God and a world filled with suffering. And what's striking is that he doesn't shy away from those difficult questions.
He brings his doubts and frustrations directly to God, lays it all out there.
It's a raw, honest expression of the struggle many people face when they try to reconcile their faith with the realities of the world. It's like he's saying, God, I believe in you, but I don't understand what's going on. I need you to show up to make things right.
It's a valid prayer, don't you think?
Absolutely. The Psalms invite us to come in our whole selves to God, including our doubts and frustrations. It's not about having all the answers or pretending everything is fine. It's about being real with God, even when it's hard.
So in 5 Psalms, we've experienced a roller coaster. Despair to confidence, awe to joy, and back to questioning.
It's quite a journey, and we've only scratched the surface of what these Psalms have to offer.
You know, going through these Psalms, it really challenges that image of faith, you know, that it always has to be positive and unwavering.
Oh, it's so refreshing, isn't it? It's like a breath of fresh air.
To see this raw honesty, these unfiltered emotions, you know, in these prayers.
Exactly. It's like they're giving us permission to be human.
Yeah.
You know, to acknowledge our struggles, our doubts, and even like our anger toward God.
And that even someone like King David went through the same things.
Right. It's a powerful reminder that none of us are immune to these ups and downs of faith. Even someone chosen by God, a king no less, experienced those same doubts and struggles. And that's incredibly encouraging.
I think you're right. I think a lot of people feel like they have to have it all together. But these Psalms show us that it's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely. And that's so freeing, isn't it? To know that we don't have to pretend or put on a brave face all the time.
It's real. So speaking of struggles, I was thinking about Psalm 9, where it's this triumphant celebration of God's justice. And then Psalm 10, where David is questioning why the wicked seem to prosper.
Oh, that's such an interesting juxtaposition, isn't it? You go from this peak of joy and praise to this valley of doubt and questioning.
That's like, how can these two exist side by side?
I think it speaks to the complexity of faith. It's not always a linear progression from doubt to belief or despair to joy. It's more like a dance, a constant back and forth between these different emotions.
I like that, a dance.
And the Psalms give us the space to move through those emotions, to express them honestly and authentically. They don't tell us to suppress our doubts or pretend we're not struggling. They embrace the messiness of the human experience.
So it's not about suppressing the negative feelings, but like bringing them to God.
Yes, bringing it all to God, the good, the bad, the ugly, and trusting that He can handle it, that He wants to hear it all.
I think that's something a lot of people struggle with, that it's okay to bring those difficult emotions to God.
And often it's in that wrestling, in that honest dialogue with God, that we find a deeper understanding of both ourselves and our faith. It's not about easy answers or quick fixes. It's about the journey, the process of working through those tough questions and coming out on the other side with a more mature and resilient faith.
So back to Psalm 8 for a second. What really stood out to me was how David connected the vastness of creation with this like intimate care of God.
It's a beautiful paradox, isn't it? On the one hand, we're these incredibly small, finite beings in this vast, infinite universe. And yet, on the other hand, we're known and loved by the creator of it all.
I'm thinking of those times when I'm outside at night, looking up at the stars. I feel so tiny, but also like I'm part of something so much bigger.
It's both humbling and awe-inspiring, isn't it?
Yeah.
It puts our problems into perspective and reminds us that there's a power and a purpose beyond our limited understanding.
Yeah. It makes those everyday anxieties feel a little less overwhelming.
I think that's the heart of Psalm 8. It's a call to cultivate that sense of awe and wonder, to remember our place in this grand cosmic scheme and find peace in the midst of chaos.
So shifting gears a little bit.
Okay.
I'm curious about how David expresses his anger in Psalm 10.
It's raw, isn't it? Unfiltered. He doesn't hold back. He directly confronts God with his frustration and confusion.
But it doesn't feel disrespectful.
No, it doesn't. There's still a sense of reverence there, an acknowledgement of God's power and authority, but he's also being honest. He's bringing his genuine emotions to the table, trusting that God can handle them.
It's like, God, I'm angry. I don't understand why this is happening, but I'm still coming to you with it.
Exactly. And I think that's such a crucial message for us today. We live in a culture that often encourages us to suppress our negative emotions, to put on a happy face and pretend everything's fine. But the Psalms show us that it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be angry, to be sad, to be frustrated. And that those emotions don't disqualify us from having a relationship with God. In fact, they can actually be a pathway to a deeper, more authentic connection with him.
Because it's in those moments of vulnerability
Mm-hmm.
that true intimacy can happen.
Exactly. When we're willing to strip away the facades, the pretenses, and just be real with God, that's where true transformation can occur.
So to sum up what we've talked about so far, I
Okay.
think one of the biggest takeaways is that it's okay to not be okay.
I love that. It's okay to not be okay.
It's okay to struggle, to doubt, to question, and even to be angry with God.
And to remember that God is with us in those moments, even when it feels like he's distant.
And he wants us to come to him with all of it.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah.
He wants all of us, not just the parts we deem presentable.
To be real with him, just like David was.
And to trust that even in the midst of our struggles, God is working for our good and for his glory. It might not always be clear or easy, but he's there, he's present, he's working.
It's so encouraging to know that even thousands of years ago, people were wrestling with these same questions and emotions.
It's a testament to the enduring power of these Psalms, isn't it? They connect us to the ancient human experience of faith and remind us that we're not alone in our struggles.
We've talked about the emotional roller coaster of these Psalms, the way they move between despair and confidence, awe and questioning. But do you think there's like a common thread that runs through it all?
I think the thread that ties all of these songs together is honesty.
Yeah.
Honesty with God, honesty with ourselves. David doesn't shy away from any of it. He lays bare his fears, his doubts, his anger, his joy. He holds nothing back.
And in that honesty, we find a model for how we can approach God.
Exactly. Not with some carefully constructed persona, but with our true selves.
Yeah.
Our messy, complicated, imperfect selves. Because it's in those vulnerable moments when we're willing to be real that we experience the fullness of God's love and grace.
So as we continue our deep dive, I'm curious to see how that honesty, how that authenticity plays out in the remaining texts. So we were talking about honesty being this thread through these Psalms.
Yeah, it's really powerful how it plays out in Psalm 10,
Mhm.
especially when David's wrestling with why bad things happen to good people.
That's something we've all thought about.
Oh, absolutely. It's a universal struggle, isn't it?
You know, when you see injustice and suffering,
Mm-hmm.
it makes you question everything.
And David doesn't shy away from that in Psalm 10.
No, he doesn't.
He goes right to God with it.
He does. He's like, why, Lord, do you stand far off? Why do you hide yourself in times of trouble?
It's raw, it's honest, and it's so relatable.
It really is.
Because those feelings of pain and confusion, they're valid. It's okay to question, to wrestle with doubt when faced with those hard realities.
I think a lot of people are afraid to admit that they question God.
But those struggles can actually be a catalyst for growth.
Mm-hmm.
They push us to confront the complexities of life and our faith, to move beyond simplistic answers and embrace the mystery.
Yeah, it's not about having all the answers.
Right.
It's about grappling with those tough questions.
Exactly. And finding our way through them, even if it's messy and uncomfortable. That's where true growth and transformation happen.
So how do we make sense of this tension then?
Oh, the age-old questions.
Between a loving God and a world where there is so much suffering.
It's a question that's been pondered for centuries, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And there are no easy answers, no quick fixes.
No.
But the Psalms offer us a way to approach these questions, a framework,
That he's not afraid of our questions or our doubts.
and in fact, might even use those struggles to draw us closer.
You know, it makes me think of that C.S. Lewis quote,
Oh, which one?
where he says, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pain. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world.
That's so good. It really captures the idea that sometimes our greatest growth comes through our deepest pain.
It's like those moments of suffering can shake us awake.
Force us to see things from a new perspective.
And ultimately draw us closer to God if we're open to it.
Mhm.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Psalm 6 through 10,
Okay.
what do you think is the biggest takeaway for our listeners?
I think the most important thing to remember is that it's okay to not be okay, to struggle, to doubt, to question, and to know that God is with you in those moments, even when it feels like he's far away.
He doesn't expect us to have it all figured out.
Not at all. He welcomes us with all our imperfections, our doubts, our questions.
I like to think of it as an invitation to be authentic.
Yes, an invitation to be real with God, to bring our whole selves to the table.
So to everyone listening, I really encourage you to spend some time with these Psalms.
Yeah, read them slowly. Don't be afraid to ask those hard questions. Let those words resonate deep within your soul.
And most importantly, remember that you are not alone in your struggles. So many have walked this path before you.
And God is walking with you every step of the way.
This has been a really powerful journey through these Psalms.
It has. I'm always amazed at how relevant and timeless they are.
Thanks for guiding us through it.
It's been a pleasure. And to all of you listening, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep seeking, and may you find peace and strength on your journey.
Until next